Chapter 9. Conclusion. Even though Yu did stand up, he begins to lose consciousness. He manages to keep himself awake by focusing on his opponent and thinking. He realizes since he was thrown, his opponent must be practicing judo, and if he gets thrown again, he won't be able to stand up. He analyzes what Iwado did, realizing that if he gets close, he'll be grabbed again. Jabs are all he has that will work. Masaki says he's going to go for a left. Suki notes he's already been using lefts. Masaki explains that the thug hunter doesn't have the footwork to jump in and slam down a right straight punch. He says that jabs will only give him the same results. He needs something more powerful. One of Masaki's friends says that Masaki must really want this guy to win. Masaki responds saying he doesn't really care. He's just perplexed by why Yu is standing if he has no chance of winning. There is a personal reason why Masaki wonders this, to do with his backstory, but we don't get into that until much later. Yu focuses on throwing as many jabs as he can. The first one is parried. The second one hits, but not cleanly. At this point, his sleeve is grabbed by Iwado. As he tries to regain his balance, his front leg goes back to stabilize him. Yu focuses on one more punch, as Iwado tries to go for his other arm or shoulder. He hits him cleanly, causing Iwado to fall, and the thugs to react in dismay. Masaki is surprised, saying, "He did it." Shin calls out Yu's name. One of Masaki's friends asks what that sound was. Masaki says, "It was a switch. He switched up and threw a counter." Masaki's friends are confused by these terms. Masaki explains that the thug hunter tried to get in as many left jabs as he could. His first missed, and his second was weak. When he moved in forward to keep punching, Iwado grabbed his right sleeve, pulling him in. As the thug hunter lost his balance, he moved his right leg forward, which switched up his stance. Iwado's critical error was to go for his collar. At this point, he didn't just invite a hit. He left his face completely open. The thug hunter used the force from getting pulled in, along with twisting his hips to throw a powerful left straight punch. Iwado was moving forward at this point too, so he got caught right in the counter. It seems unlikely to Masaki that the thug hunter planned this. It was probably a coincidence, but this means he has the ability that gives him these coincidences. Otherwise, there's no way he would have been able to do this. The last statement of his ties back into the lesson about the 1-2 punch from Chapter 1. I really like this, because it goes to show that happenstance or luck isn't all about random chance by itself. Just because an opportunity comes your way doesn't mean you have the ability or confidence to take advantage of it. Even though Yu is not as strong as the rumors made him out to be, he does have the ability to use fast, powerful straight punches. We hear a snap. Yu's hand starts throbbing and hurting, causing him to grasp it. It's swelling up. We see Shin run to Yu, calling him. This doesn't surprise Masaki. The narrator comes on explaining that it's not easy to create fists capable of knocking people out. Even karate masters who've trained their fists with sandbags and fist push-ups sometimes hit their opponent's skulls and break their own hands. That's how tough human bone is. The shock it can send to a fist that hits it with extreme force is incredible. The destruction of Yu's hand was inevitable. There is a chance that some people might feel that these explanations bog down the story, but I wholeheartedly disagree with that. The explanations help to explain the reality and theory of martial arts, street fighting, and life, using a story to enhance them. They help to ground the narrative in reality, and use the story to make these explanations relevant. I love this aspect of Holyland, as I like to learn new things. As I mentioned before, stories are one of the best ways to teach things. The fight concludes, but what are the thugs going to do? Yu is not in a state where he can defend himself. Chapter 10. Downtown. Yu is crying out in pain due to his hand being broken. The thugs don't look that happy. Yoshido speaks up, saying to you that he's really something. He believes that you acted like an amateur just to throw off Iwado, and now he's acting like he broke his hand. This is probably also how the other thugs see it too. They know that he is no amateur now. They aren't going to hold back. They're going to come at him with everything they have. Shin starts to protest. This is an interesting situation to analyze because we as the viewers have seen more of you than these thugs have. There has been nothing in what we've seen of you that would suggest he was putting on an act. Shin has spent some time with you, and he's better at reading people than most are, so he knows it wasn't an act, hence why he protests. Aizawa Masaki, on the other hand, doesn't know you, and is able to deduce that he wasn't putting on an act, due to his expert analysis on his technique, as well as understanding and knowledge of street fighting. He's also more removed from the situation. The thugs, on the other hand, don't have this expert knowledge of fighting. Moreover, they are much more biased. To Yoshido, this is all about reputation, and the power gained from that reputation. The thugs who were beat up see this as you attacking them, despite them being the aggressors and initiators. In other words, this was orchestrated to repair their reputation. You winning the fight was not part of their plan. You rose up and conquered the odds that were placed against him, surprising everyone. It was probably never Yoshido's plan to do things fair. All of a sudden, Masaki speaks up and walks forward with his friends, saying that Seta has fallen from its former glory. He thought this was a normal fight. After all this, they're going to gang up on him? He's embarrassed for him. This startles and surprises Yoshido, and gets the thugs talking. They seem to have heard of him being in Ninja boxing. One of them asks if Masaki taught the thug hunter what he knows. Another says he heard that Masaki was looking for him too. Another says this is bad. We see how rumors spread and distort the truth in later volumes. Masaki continues saying, "Your representative gets taken out, so you resort to lynching? You think that's fair?" Masaki then takes a look at Yu's hand. His bone isn't broken. His middle finger is just dislocated. He pops it back in for you. Yu, of course, feels the pain. Masaki advises him to see the doctor tomorrow, then asks how Iwado is doing. His friend checks him and says he's still got his jaw, commenting that he's tough. Masaki then turns to Yoshido, saying, "Hear that? You lucked out, so hurry up and get out of here." Yoshido, of course, isn't happy about him taking charge. "You think you're making the calls here?" "We're not going to let him leave in one piece," says Yoshido. Masaki then responds in a bold, inspiring way that one wouldn't expect. I think it'll be more effective to quote his lines and analyze what he's saying. "Extortion, theft, transporting stolen goods, and now you can't even handle one-on-one battles properly anymore. You're all fucking pathetic. When did the thugs in this town become such cowards? We have no laws in our world, but if you can't even uphold the most basic of your own rules, then the streets will no longer accept you." Yu looks up at him, questioning to himself. The streets won't accept them? From examining later chapters, it seems to me that Aizawa Masaki was simply speaking his mind. Perhaps he had thoughts about this beforehand and only got the opportunity to speak his mind at this point. He talks as if he's either the authority on the streets, or as if he consulted with the authority of the streets. I love this. This reminds me of how Jesus in the Bible was someone who spoke with authority against the teachers of the law. Masaki seems to have this strong conviction about the morals, fairness, or rules of the streets. The idea of rules is something I will talk about in another video. It's interesting that he is standing up to thugs due to his belief of the importance of rules. His speech certainly affects you. Yoshido retorts that Masaki sure knows how to talk, but does he think he can take on this many people alone? Masaki admits he can't, showing either practicality or humility. As Yoshido tells him to wipe that grin off his face, he says that as long as his friends protect his back, he can probably send half of them to the hospital. Masaki seems to enjoy taunting Yoshido, who seems flustered at this moment. However, we get the sense that Masaki isn't all talk. If he has to back up his claims, he will. He is that confident in his skill. Maybe he wants a fight to happen. Yu Kamishiro looks up at him, noting Masaki isn't shivering or sweating. To Yu, Masaki is amazing. He's basically Yu's savior at this point. At this, the thug that was keeping watch runs back, saying the police are on their way. Yoshido curses, saying that they made too much noise. He calls out to the thugs and the gang that they have no choice but to split, which they do. Yoshido makes sure to warn Masaki that if he messes with them, they will get him back. Masaki seems to know about him, as he can't help taunting that he's on probation and should hurry. Masaki advises Yu and Shin to run too, since with those wounds they won't be able to make up excuses. Masaki asks Yu's name, which Yu gives him and thanks him. Masaki in turn introduces himself, then says "see you later" in the streets, before heading off. Those words seem to echo in Yu's mind as they too head out. As they return back to the warmth of daily life again, after 2 months, what happens in the streets seems like nothing but scary memories now. Shin and Yu haven't spoken with each other since. Yu notes that it was the first time he was taken as that seriously. And the first time he got that desperate. He felt so alive then. He's still scared of the streets, but just like before, he finds himself drawn to it. Masaki hasn't seen him since, either, so he says he's not coming back out here, is he? Masaki's friend with the toque answers, of course not. If he were him, he wouldn't be out here either. Just as Masaki agrees with him, he sees Yu in the crowd, and starts running after him, just like at the start of the volume. This last scene with Masaki, however, doesn't appear to be canon, as in the next volume it's as if it never happened. This ends the first volume. I like that we have this moment where this supposedly life-changing event doesn't result in his whole life changing, just like that. Time passes as it does for us. In fact, things are kind of awkward between Shin and Yu. This feels really realistic and relatable. Yu notes the positive parts of the episode, which is much easier to do when compared to the lack of those things in his normal day-to-day life. The story isn't over, however. This showdown is only the first step in his journey. The moment of Aizawa Masaki stepping in and Yu looking up to him is a defining moment in this story, and really important in Yu's development. Masaki hasn't shown a hint of fear at this point, stepping in and taking control of the situation. Moreover, he considers himself a thug like them. The way he comes in to defend Yu is a heroic action, though we find out that Masaki was simply doing what he felt like doing. He may have even wanted a fight. It's almost suicidal. Yu looks up to him as someone who is the opposite of him. Courageous, strong, sure of himself. Everything Yu isn't. This moment defines the relationship moving forward. One thing to note, though, is if Yu hadn't tried as hard as he did, Masaki probably wouldn't have stepped in. So Yu Kamishiro won him over by defeating the odds in front of him. Masaki is Yu's first role model.